Welcome, 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 everyone. This is You Be the Judge. We're here every Wednesday at 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just want to let everybody know that we are here to have not just a talk, but to have information, to have a conversation, and to get some information. And along with that, hopefully, it puts into an action. I think that when we've been doing this show, it's about hearing people. Today is this season, and this is the season of mid-election, people running for office. Still one of the most important elections of our time. Our own Marilyn Pierre is running for Circuit Court Judge of Montgomery County in Maryland. It's very important for her and to ask for Marilyn. Please send money. Go to her website, donate anything you can, which is helpful, whether it's to just donate your time. Here's the thing: you can always donate your time wherever you are, specifically in Montgomery County. If you know someone throughout the United States, you can always send money to say, I support you, I enjoy you. Because this does go out across the United States, podcasts, live on YouTube, and all the social media. But along with that said, hey, Marilyn, how has your week been?
Oh, my week has been really, really fun, and it's been extremely busy. Moving up and down, going to this place, going to that place, which is why I missed last week. I missed you guys so much that I said, oh, I am going to try not to let that happen again. I couldn't believe how much I missed doing this and how I missed talking to you and listening to the questions that everyone has and listening to and participating in the discussions that we all have. I just absolutely, absolutely missed it. And I will try not to do that again.
And last week we had Brandy Brooks on. And again, I think everyone who has ever came on You Be the Judge on Wednesdays at 6 p.m., who's ever either running for office or has some information or some passion or purpose. And I think that's the key: passion and purpose. Not many people really act on passion or purpose, or in a very even fewer have both together. And I find that disturbing because let's go with recently. If people have been listening to the January 6th inquiry, that's the great. It's an inquiry. I don't know what many people have heard. I don't know how they hear it, but most people hear through a perception or an attuned ear to maybe hear something they're looking for. But what I hear when I listen to those inquiries, it's not so much what the last president did or wanted to do. It's what the many people have allowed it to be. That to me, it's not, when people get so hyped on what he was trying to do, what happened, you got to remember there was still a large amount of people who were in political positions in the Senate, in the Congress, who allowed for this to happen. And to me, that speaks volume. Marilyn?
Well, I agree with you. I know that they said that so many of the members of Congress were just cowering under their desk, trying to barricade themselves inside their offices to protect themselves and their staff. And now some of those members of Congress are the ones who are defending the actions. I remember on January 6th, it was a Wednesday, and you and I
Yeah.
were started discussing about what was going on, and it was just so unbelievably shocking that in our country that something like this could be happening. And people are calling to the president saying, they're storming the Capitol. What are you going to do about it? I also remember there was a discussion that our governor, Larry Hogan, called and offered the Maryland National Guard in order to help, the police officers who were there because they were definitely outnumbered and outgunned. But, the president wouldn't, would not accept the help that was offered. And even now, when I see the video, when I watch the January 6th commission and I see the video and I see the level of anger, the violence that was going on, I still feel really, really afraid, even though I know that it's something that was happening in the past. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about it.
But I want to hear from other people, but I don't think it's in the past. I think this is still so present. I think this has been present for people who have been aware of how our nation has been moving since Lyndon Johnson. I mean, we can compare this to when Martin Luther King got shot, when Kennedy was killed, when Bobby Kennedy was killed. When riots happen, it's something that triggers it. So what triggered it and how did the nation respond? The nation has never not responded like this before. The nation, every other riot you can think of, the nation has been responsive or responded in a certain way. Now let's look at any other riot. We'll use the word riot that has happened in any parts of the United States. They happen with a lot of vigilance, a lot of vitriol, and a lot of passion to denounce it. Here, the public in a whole has actually accused it. They're just like, yeah, it happened. Not that big a deal. So that, again, speaks volumes on the majority of America who did not mind this happening because they have not spoken out, whether it be the mass media, whether it be the national media. They may have some written headlines, some small ones saying how this it was, how this, but it's not like this was not that upsetting to the majority of America. And to me, that speaks volumes of where we're at. And that's my point. I'm not talking about who caused it, why it was caused. Now let's talk about who's not responding. That says a lot to us. And that is the scary component. And I'm still scared by it because the people who are not just supporting it, we know who they are, great. The people who have said, we didn't like it, we know who they are, great. But the other majority of the population hasn't said anything. That's the scary part to me.
Well, they talked about how there was supposed to be a blow by blow response, and so we haven't seen the blow by blow response. So to me, that silence says a lot,
right?
Because if there was a blow by blow response that what they felt that they could have, they would put it on. What scares me as well is the number of people who this president has endorsed who have won their primaries. That is
100 of them.
That is really scary, because right. when you listen to the tapes and you listen to the vitriol that is in his voice when he is calling for harm to be done to the vice president. It's like the president is calling for harm to be done to the vice president because he has a goal in mind. And if anybody gets in the way of that goal, that person has got to go. And so then he goes out and endorses someone, and that candidate wins the primary. And you're saying, wow, what is going on there? And I see that Judge Barber would like to respond and put something in as well.
Go ahead, Judge Barber. Welcome. We miss you. Welcome, Judge Barber.
Well, I agree with judicial candidate, Mary Lynn Pierre. What threw me off a little bit before I came on was I was reading the story about former gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gilliam being indicted on federal campaign elections. It's a bunch of junk. I said, yeah. Okay, y'all need to stop. You just stop. But that threw me off because I had to read a little bit more into it to see how timely. Oh, how timely. You know? Right. So again, I want to reemphasize to our audience, you have got to watch these campaigns when people are under attack to see A, who's making the attack, and B, you have to study to see if this is a rival attack, because many times it is. And it is intentionally and purposefully done at election time to gain a tactical advantage against your opponent. And depending upon how well it's executed, you know, some smears can be very effective in turning away voters. And a lot of times it's done to poison, and let me repeat myself, poison the electorate. But what you all were saying about the January 6th hearings is very, very, very interesting, because I also read a story where Senator Tim Adams said he is supportive of Trump if he runs in 2024. And no,
Really?
he's not watching the January 6th committee hearings. Okay.
Tim Adams
We
said
got
that?
that.
Yep.
The candidate for comptroller of Maryland?
No.
No.
You know, I'm wrong.
Oh, okay.
Tim Scott.
Scott.
Senator
Tim
Tim
Scott.
Scott.
Oh, yes,
From,
of course,
U.S. Senator from U.S. Senator of South Carolina.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tim
okay.
Scott.
Okay, that makes sense.
Who voted not
That's
to
what I was like, whoa.
Who voted not to impeach Trump.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. See that's what I mean, because you have these people who were so afraid and are so afraid of Trump for whatever reason that they will tell to him. Like even the I forgot his name, the gentleman from Arizona who testified yesterday, who said that people were calling him and
threatening him.
He and his family were afraid that they were put in danger by the way that the president was talking about, what the then president was talking about them. He still is saying that he's going to vote for Trump if he gets a chance. So I don't get the disconnect.
Well, there's still 70 million people. If not, let's go. We're not talking about the people who did vote for him. Let's talk about the people who will vote for him again. Let's do an easy conservative 60 million people. So there's still 60 million people out there who believe he should be president.
This is alarming, largely also because we have a large segment of the population that's for evil, that's for wrong, that's for people who have committed crimes. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
And they're okay with it.
They're okay with it. That's the other thing. They're okay with it. They are okay. That is no different than being okay with slavery and doing nothing. There's no different. It's no different than the Hitler regime. You call yourself above and beyond all that? No, you're not. No, you're not. You just go for anything. Anything.
Wow.
You know, and the same, you know, you're sitting up there, you know, now you have this whole movement going on, not only in our communities, but also in other parts of the country, anti-CRT all over the country. You know, where they're just trying to whitewash and get rid and ban books from libraries and the school curriculum. I mean, how is that different from what Hitler did in propaganda and trying to prove that there were no concentration camps? I mean, you are no better than that. You're banning books? Really? You're no different. You're no different.
I would like to ask Marilyn, you can see if anyone has their hands raised up, if anyone has a comment or question or thoughts, because I want to get right into it. Just recently for this past weekend, Father's Day weekend, Juneteenth, there's a lot of information on that. I was camping, and I was camping with my kids and grandkids, and there was a campsite of a person who had American flags and long, big Trump flags in their campsite. I mean, it's not a small one, we're talking about the 23-footer, right?
Wow.
So, oh yeah, it's a big flag. It's a big flag, and they had two of them. So the question I had,
They had two flags.
Had two flags, one on one corner of their RV, and the other one on the other side of their where it covers the picnic table. And I was there for like 3 days, and so I kept, the first day I saw it, I was like, huh, that's fascinating. The second day, I gotta go ask. I gotta go. I cannot not go. I gotta go. I want to meet people. I want to talk to people. I want to have a conversation. I am not here to condone or to impugn anyone. I gotta go. I gotta ask the question. So
did you wear your NAACP t-shirt?
No, I was just black. That's probably good enough. So the person, it was a perfect opportunity. My dog Addie was with me. Most people, if you don't know me, I have a service dog, emotional support service dog, in Addie. And when he wears his vest, it says, I serve a vet. And the person says, oh, thank you for your service. And it was a perfect, I'm telling you, perfect opportunity for me to say, hey, thank you. And I said, let me ask you a question. He goes, you're going to ask me about my Trump flag, aren't you? I said, and I smiled.
How do you know?
We're shaking hands. I said, absolutely. I said, yeah. I said, tell me your thoughts. Really. And he goes, well, I'll tell you. I just believe our country is going in a certain direction that I don't believe in. And I believe this president, and he gave me his points of view. He has to, when you're talking to a white male person, middle-aged white male person, being a tall black person, every white person will definitely include, I am not prejudiced. I don't have to ask. They will definitely make sure they bring it to the point and across that to say, I'm not prejudiced, but I believe in ... And so we were talking about how he disagrees with a lot of Biden's issue. And I say, I don't like Biden either. And he goes, well, I just think Biden's this and this and that, and the liberal this and this. I said, here's the thing. I believe in people, and I believe mostly in policy. If you're going to talk about specifically policies, there's a lot of presidents have not done policy-wise for people of African America, I don't think, since Lincoln. So you don't get any arguments there from me. But the thing is that Trump, he brings out a lot of neo-Nazism and a lot of hatred and vitriol. He says, well, I don't disagree with that. I just like him as a president. I said, how do you separate the two? He goes, you can't. And I said, well, therein lies my problem. That's it. I mean, if you can't separate it, then he's a catalyst. And I don't know if any president should be a catalyst to separate the country. And that's what he has been. So I just want to let people know, when you go visit and talk and get informed, no matter who it is, please have a conversation with people, because this is important. Because we're not just fighting people, we're fighting ideology. And it's hard to fight an ideology. It's like me fighting you against your race, religion, because that's what you believe in, Protestant, Catholic, whatever it is. That's not an argument you're going to win, because that is what you believe in. So to understand where certain people believe in is helpful if you're going to say what you're going to say in public, private, or write about it. I'm glad. Thank you for sharing. Who had a question, Marilyn?
I think Will had a question. Will, did you have a question?
You're on mute, Will.
I thought he made a movement, like he had a question. Yeah, okay, there you go, Will.
Why don't you view this simply as a counter-revolution? That things have been changing slowly for the last 60 years in a direction of a multicultural, multiracial, etc. country, and the people who had the powers don't like it and don't want to see the change.
I agree. Well, I think this is not a fast one. I think this has slowly been moving this way. But when we talk about this show, ultimately, we've always talked about if you see something, say something. If you have information, speak it. If you don't understand something, ask the question. Recently, as we know, the Caucus of African American Leaders, we had a person on Monday tell us about a student in one of the counties, it was a Calvert? No, not Calvert. It was on the Eastern Shore, correct? Where the son said he was going to shoot up a bunch of niggers in his school, right?
I thought that was Wicomico or something like that.
Wicomico. Yeah, it was Wicomico. Wicomico County, the young boy said he was going to go to school and shoot up niggers. We can talk about that, but here's the thing. His mother is not only on a school board, but she's up for re-election but she was appointed. But here's the thing. The child saying thing, the Board of Education or the school doing their thing, the mother running for Board of Education is a thing. That isn't to me an issue as much as the county hasn't said anything. The school hasn't said anything. No one has said this needs to be fixed. Again, the large amount of people have not done nothing. And there's a problem for me.
Well, now this is where racism comes into play. Now, if a charge like that is made, that's a threat.
Correct.
First of all. And if we were to take that threat seriously, in any situation, even if somebody said that, and then they use, machete guns to shoot down Black people at Tops supermarket in Buffalo, as they did. See, you've got to point the finger squarely at law enforcement and what are they enforcing? Because by now, charges should have been brought against whoever made those statements that were a threat, that was designed to intimidate, to terrorize, and to put fear in the hearts of people. And there is not enough movement on the part of law enforcement to do anything,
But there's no outcry from the community to enforce the law enforcement.
That's another problem. That's another problem. You've got to look squarely at prosecutors. You got to look at the top prosecutor for one thing. You got to look squarely at law enforcement because they're the ones that bring the charges. And there's always this, laid back approach when it comes to charging white folks.
Right.
I mean, not,
right.
Just say it and spell it out. They just have a problem with his whiteness, and the person that's on the school board, they remove that person in a flash. If this were some principal trying to suggest CRT was going to be implemented in a Texas school, so in a flash, in a wink of an eye, they throw the principal out the door and send them on their way, pink slip and all, in a second. So, the fact that school board person is still there insulting,
right.
What the fact, no arrests have been made, double insulting.
But if I was a school board member, I would, and I'm just not me. Why aren't the other school board members standing on top of the mountaintop going,
right?
We are not allowing this.
Exactly.
It's not, we're not going to, even if we don't blame her for her son or her child, she's got to remove herself.
Exactly.
This is not what our school is. Okay, so that's the school board. How about the principal of the school standing on the mountaintop? What about the parents of the school? Where are they? I'm not talking about.
I think it's actually even less than that. I mean, I would expect that if I think the child is 15, some age like that, I would expect
16,
that
16,
if my minor, if my minor child did something so egregious, I would be saying, oh my God, I am so sorry. I don't know where he got that from. let me take care of the problem. Let me see what I could do to make sure that this
Squash
does not
never
become
happens
more
again.
than, yeah, exactly. But none of that, not even that little itsy bitsy bit of, I recognize that there's a problem and I need to address it. Not even that.
That's a huge step right there.
Mhm.
You
That's
said
a
it
problem.
all.
And I think I know we have a question here, but that to me, I think when we don't have public outcry, again with the January 6th, this particular incident in Wacomico County or any other county or any other state or any other city, when the mass people who do know or haven't heard and they don't say anything, that to me is where the state of America is why we have fear based in Black America. I know we have a question or a comment.
I was just going to say, how many of us followed the hearing yesterday? Because I think it was just monumental if you followed it, but you wouldn't really appreciate what you missed if you didn't follow it. You know, and I think there were just some stunning things. And it's funny because you're in front of a sign that says Morgan State University. Did everyone here catch Jason Johnson on MSNBC? He just went off. Did anyone else? I'm not going to be able to do it justice. I'm going to try to find a tape for you. But he basically, okay, first the panel was 3 white men, right? And they moved mountains by saying how they were impacted and affected. But he said it was nothing compared to Ruby Freeman and I've lost her name, Shay Moss, because they couldn't say, let's get in some more security. Their lives were ruined, you know, and he just hammered that. It was beyond belief. You just, okay, you got to see it. You got to see it. It was just, this is intolerable.
It was worse, if I may, it was worse than that. She said that all of the people who worked with her are no longer working as election judges.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And again, Marilyn had mentioned the endorsement of the past president to the people who have won their election is over 100 of them. Whether that also says a lot about who is positioning themselves. We know they're positioning themselves in polls. We know they're positioning themselves at the different elections. We know they're winning. We know that the Democrats most likely are going to lose the House in the midterm election because they're positioning themselves, and the majority of people agree with Donald Trump. If that doesn't speak volumes of where our not just political politics, but where the majority of people are at, that should bring cause.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that it should bring pause because, you know, I think that it's mind-boggling how the former President Trump has that much influence on the country and on the congressional seats as a whole. It's literally mind-boggling. It basically shows that the country has just gone to a new low, because they'll just put anything in office, anything, no matter what they did. And nothing is shocking. In other words, he can't shock them enough to not vote for him, unless, you know, maybe he done something even more egregious, like, you know,
what? Make up
know.
something. I can't. You can't even make it up without it being. No, they will let that go too. There's nothing you can make.
Because even he said that if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, it'll be okay. And he talked about how he has assaulted women, grabbing them because, you know, if you're famous enough, they'll let you. You know, I can't think of anything at this point that he would do that some people wouldn't say, that's just the way he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, let us hope that these hearings will be the death of 1,000 cuts to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
How so?
Each day, some of his support each day, some people are persuaded by what they see, and they cease supporting Trump.
Well,
And
here's the
it's a slow process, but let us hope that it's happening.
But here's the other problem. First of all, people who love Trump aren't watching the January. They're not watching. They're not shocked because they're not listening. They're not paying attention, and they're not viewing the January 6th committee hearings. You know, just like Tim Scott just said, no, I haven't watched. I'm like, okay.
I haven't
So
watched
it
it, but I
doesn't
can
interest
comment
them.
on it.
Yeah,
That's basically
well-
what he's saying. It's like, I haven't watched it, but hey, if you want me to comment on how I'm still supporting him, even though I don't know the facts, yeah, I'm still supporting him. And that's basically
There
what
you
is
go.
being said, which is what happens in terms of you are talking to people who don't have the basic facts.
I'm
and
blocking
they
it out.
they don't want to know. You know, they've
Right,
already made up their
right.
minds, and no evidence
They've all,
is going
there's
to make
no
them, yeah.
evidence that'll be strong enough to convict him of anything.
Exactly.
What about
Oh.
as a legal thing? What about Mike Pence? Do you think if he came out, I don't know how he would be able to get this vocabulary or speech out about how he felt, what was said, what we already heard about the commission, and what what someone had said, what they wanted to do to Pence. If he came out and says, as a vice president, would that change more people's minds, do you think? And I still don't think so.
I don't think so, because don't forget Mike Pence was put on there to give Trump credibility with the evangelicals. And now I would say some of the evangelicals have jumped from Mike Pence to Trump. So now Trump has that support. I was listening, talk about the evangelicals. I was listening to, NPR when they were discussing how the evangelicals didn't have Roe versus Wade as an issue that they were concerned about. Well, abortion
Correct.
as an issue that they were concerned about. But because of the civil rights movement and certain children being allowed to attend certain schools, the so-called moral majority was able to use those issues and then wrap abortion in there. And that's how the evangelicals then became involved with the abortion issue, because they said before that they saw it as a Catholic issue. Oh, the Catholics don't want people to get abortion. That's them. You know, that's not a big thing for us. But when they wrapped it with basically something involving race, they were more than happy to then say, oh yeah, that's going to be an issue for us too. So, you know, with Jerry Falwell and
moral
in the moral
majority.
Mhm.
The moral majority.
Yeah.
I remember that. But
Yeah.
that
So race is,
remember
I know,
that-
I'm sorry, Teresa, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I didn't
But
mean to interrupt
race
as well.
is such an issue in this country, but you end up talking about race with the same people. The people
Right.
who need to have a discussion on race. And just like you said, you know, Dr. Dyer, it doesn't have to be accusatory. It just has to be informative and educational, but they will not listen to that discussion because they don't want to have any dealing with that at all. They just put their heads in the sand and hope that it will go away. So Teresa?
Oh, I was just going to remind everybody that Trump never conceded. So he's the president of those people who Dr. Dyer has seen in the campgrounds. I said in the beginning that Trump is the second president of the Confederacy. And the Confederacy is staunch about keeping white supreme. And that's what he's promised to do with them. And so this is what we have, a divided America. And that's why, to me, these hearings are nothing more than basically slow walking, because they should have done that a long time ago. This man should not be able to do what he's doing. If he had done that in any other country, he would have been gone. He would not be found, but in America, that's where he is. And we have two Americans now, two Americas. We have two presidents, because he never conceded. And so this is where we are. And that's why he can go and walk around as pompous as he does and endorse whoever he endorses, and they get elected. That's what we're dealing with.
Well, it's very interesting that you phrased it that way. Now, in sharp disagreement, I would say that President Joseph Biden is the president of the United States, and there is no second president, even if he didn't concede. I think that his people who follow him adore him, and they treat him as though he's invincible, and that he will always be the best president for them because he holds white supremacy in high esteem. And not only that, he supports the agenda. He supports all of the policies that are behind that. And you see what he's done to the Supreme Court. They love him for that. That supermajority, that was all part of what they want. And to have him in office is that, they just see him as somebody who can, again, do no wrong under any set of circumstances. They won't convict him for once he's impeached. That's been tried twice. So you're right. It's impeach the man and get and I mean, at least during the Watergate situation, Nixon was run out of office because they had enough votes to impeach the man and convict him. Mm-hmm. And so it's okay, I'll resign rather than be embarrassed. But this is a different situation.
I've seen numerous videos where people say Trump is their president. I'm just telling you why he's doing what he's doing. I've just seen it too many times.
But that was the amazing part about this hearing, because you had three men who wanted Trump to be president and said he didn't have the votes. I mean, that's really not a nuance. I mean, that's really quite amazing.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about the commission, because they are using, like Holly said, they're using people that Trump used to listen to and vice versa. But Teresa, I would like to change it just a little bit. I don't think Trump is the second president of the United States. I think some people see him on an equal plateau.
I said Trump was the second president of the Confederacy.
Of the Confederacy. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, you did say that.
Say that.
Mm-hmm.
You're
right.
You
did say that. And you're right about that.
So what do you think about succeeding? What do you think about certain states who this is not a short conversation. This has been going on back and forth for several years, several decades, about states going to succeed or wanting to succeed. I think this will.
Now wait a minute. I read a news story this week, something about the Texas GOP.
Yep.
What did they
do?
I'm trying to think.
They wanted to secede.
Yeah. Well, it was bigger than that.
But you know what, though? If Texas wants to go, I say good riddance. They take way too much of our money. If California wants to go, oh no, we will fight for California, because California, basically supports the government that we have and with its money. But Texas just sucks the money out of us. And so if they want to go, it's like a child who doesn't have a job who says, well, I'm going to move out and I'm going to live wherever. I'm like, okay, good. Thank you. Have a nice life. Come back, and say hi when you feel like it.
So I have a
And,
legal question.
and I'm saying
If
that because my niece just bought a house down in Texas and I love her, but, but she'll know to move into the United States before that happens.
So that's my question. If a state succeeds, and it's fine because they can if they have enough votes, and that's fine for whatever reason. The people who don't want to be in the succeeded states, who pays for the move back to another state, or is it on their own dime? How does that work?
Well, it's the same thing.
Well-
If you were to go buy property in Mexico and you want to move, find somebody in Mexico who wants to buy the property and who wants to.
Well, for one thing, they can say goodbye to Social Security. They can say goodbye to all the federal resources.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They take so much money out of our coffers that they cannot afford to succeed if they wanted to. So that's all talk. And then I say call their bluff. Fine, you want to go, but you don't think for a second that you're going to go with the money, because that's not happening.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to remember the story that was that came a little bit earlier this week, and I just can't remember the story. I'm not sure if it was the Texas GOP adopts a resolution rejecting the 2020 election results. That was it.
Yes.
And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
Y'all can take several seats. We're not listening. We have our president. That's it.
So here's again, we'll probably have to do this next week. But if the state succeeds, knowing that they get federal dollars for this and that, do they pay for the federal roads so they can buy the roads from the federal? I mean, because they're not part of the United States, so we don't put any money into the succeeded state. So do they buy off the goods that's in the state as a federal dollar? How does that work?
That's interesting. How does the federal tax dollar work when you want gas? How does the federal tax work when you want to use the federal roadways, the interstate highways? Let's block them all up, and you can't use them. It's not yours.
Wasn't Texas their own country before they came into the before they became part of the United States? And I say, you know what? They could have whatever they have right now, because at least they won't be sucking us dry the way they have been lately. So you could take whatever you have, go away. Just at least then we will have much more money than we have now, because for every dollar that they send us, we send much more back. Whereas for every dollar that we send to California, California sends us much more back. So we're keeping California, we're keeping some of the other states, but Texas, I say good riddance.
The floor is yours.
Okay,
Sorry,
this is a non-issue. The increases in population in Texas are people who are voting Democratic, and the Republican majority, quote majority, unquote, will not last for much longer. And I doubt that Democrats are going to vote for Texas to secede. And by the way, we fought the Civil War over this principle. And I don't think anyone wants to have another Civil war.
Well, that's
I think we're there.
Direction.
No. Well, I'm thinking, Will, if it were a level playing ground, that would be one thing. But when you have people who are bent on, voter disenfranchisement, then that becomes an issue. Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, it's likely that the Democrats are going to do this, that, and the other. But I think because there's so much voter disenfranchisement, I think even Bloomberg talked about how if the what's Bloomberg's first name again? I forgot. Former mayor of New York. He talked about.
Bloomberg.
I'm sorry.
Mark Bloomberg. Is it
well,
Mark?
we're figured out.
Mike Bloomberg.
Michael. Thank
Mike
you. Yeah,
Bloomberg.
you're right. Thank you. Yeah, he talked about how if the people who were eligible to vote in Texas actually voted, Texas would be a blue state. but because basically of voter disenfranchisement, you don't have as many people who are eligible to vote. So, so yeah, Will, that would make sense if it were a level playing field, but it's not, and they're going to make sure that it remains unlevel as much as possible and for as long as possible.
Well, for me, for me, my perception is that this is all about cheating, and it's all about cheating to win.
It is.
Because voter disenfranchisement is just another euphemism for winning by cheating.
That's
You know,
correct.
it's you know, move the goalpost so that you know, when people have to go to the polls in Alabama, they can't, you know, they have to drive all the way 90 miles out of the way to get a driver's license or to get some form of identification to go to the polls to vote. So this is all just tactics.
When you have a small percentage says cheating, when you have out of 10 people and 3 people says cheating, it never goes over and it never gets looked at as cheating. And that's where I believe that the mass population condones a lot of this. You still have such a small percentage who speak up. You have another small percentage who speak against, and then you have a large percentage who say absolutely nothing.
Well, you're absolutely right. But in addition to that, you also have a judicial system that's skewed. It's because the legal system is not designed for people who have no money. You might as well just say it straight up, you know, that the system is geared towards paying attention to, you know, some defamation trial on some movie stars. Now they got all the attention in the world, you know, but you know, real people's problems about job discrimination, you got 1,000 judges out there ready to dismiss their case at the drop of a hat. You know, they don't want to be bothered. Motion for summary judgment granted. They don't want to be bothered. Motion to dismiss granted. You know, so you have those issues as well. You have a lot of problems because you know, oftentimes candidates such as Mary Lynn Pierre or myself, when we run for offices like judge or something like that, we have to be well financed, you know, and if and you have to be in a situation where if someone pulls the rug from under you on election day, you know, you have to have money to go into court to file an injunction to get you know, to get the wrongdoer to address the wrongdoing. And a lot of times, you know, campaigns are not financed that way to afford such hefty legal expenses. And it's the system that they know the system is not designed for oftentimes people who are fighting the good fight to win. They take their financial resources away, they limit their financial resources, or they make sure that they don't succeed. Only the rich people get the attention that they want. You know, they can, you know, have the law enforcement at the drop of a hat to start this indictment and start that indictment, just like you're seeing down in Florida, you know, during election time. Oh, that's an act of intimidation. Come on.
Well, Peter Franchot just stated that when he wins, he said, when I win, I'm going to bring in special police to clear up Baltimore. What the hell does that mean?
Wow.
We don't know what that means.
I know exactly what the hell that means. That means keep my black ass out of Baltimore because he's going to kill everybody that's in there. Special police. It sounds like it sounds like we're the Westerners, and you're getting the Pinkertons to come in to clean up house because you're buying up all the ranches. It means special police.
Wow.
Well, you know, that's it's interesting, and listen how candidates are verbalizing how they're handling Baltimore. You know, listen to that, Well, even the governor has done that in so many ways. But
Larry Hogan, he's speaking now. His last 4 years, he's been speaking to run on a national scale. He has not done anything for Maryland. He's been running Maryland like he's going to run as a president. So he can go along with the majority of the national poll. He's speaking on national poll resonance in Maryland. It's smart because that's what he should do, period. I mean, he can't run again as a governor and he wants to run as a president. So I'm going to say things that has a large national response of positivity. So that's how he's running Maryland right now.
Well, I guess the biggest hurdle he has to cross, of course, is, whether or not, the 2024 ballot is going to look like him versus Trump on the Republican side.
As the short polls they have taken, of course, polls are polls. Who's paying for the poll? He doesn't even compare. It comes up to like 18%. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't think they're according to the discussions that I've heard that he has been having with Mitch McConnell, he is waiting until 2024 when Senator Cardin retires to run for United States Senator.
That would be a horrible move. That'd be a horrible move.
Not for him.
Well, I wouldn't vote for him. I definitely wouldn't vote for him.
Well,
if you're going to go from governor to senator, that's a horrible move.
Why?
You're actually stepping backwards. You run a state because you're the president of the state. Your next move, if you're going to do anything, will be the presidency.
Yeah, like Ronald Reagan. Just like Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, well, but then 6 years later, you run for, I guess at this point, 8 years later, you run for president. And then you could argue I've got executive experience because I've been a governor. I have legislative experience because I've been a senator, and I have private and corporate experience because I've run a business. That would be his argument. I'm not saying.
That's a good move.
So that's why they've been grooming him and creating that pipeline for him.
So you think he's going to run for U.S. Senate?
That's what Mitch McConnell is hoping.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Because there'll be an open seat.
Yes, I think if I was in Hogan's camp, we would, if we're not going to beat Trump because of the vote, then I would just hang out for 4 years until he either wins or loses and then run for the next election. Because it's easy to sit out 4 years. But
then the name recognition drops.
He could still be active. He doesn't have to. No, absolutely. I don't think so. You really?
Yeah. I think that's what he and Mitch McConnell are envisioning. Now, mind you, I'm not in the room when they're having the discussions, but based on what I have heard from those who say they know, that's what I'm hearing.
Because then the plus thing would be him to run against Trump, and then that would keep him in the limelight, and he could just talk against. If Trump wins again, he could be on the news media for 4 years talking about how he's ruining this country. So he could be in the. He doesn't have to be a senator to do that, because he's the number one candidate outside of Trump, unless you're talking about what's
Chris
his name
Christie?
from?
Chris
No,
Christie?
not Chris Christie. From
DeSantis.
Florida.
DeSantis.
Yes,
Ron DeSantis.
That's the only other person that could give some form of a run. But other than that, there's no one else.
I forgot who they said it was, but they said someone has. There was some poll out there where they said someone now has a higher percentage in terms of success for the Republican nomination for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024 than Trump does. I forgot the name of the person, but you know, and I guess the person is keeping that on the wraps because then you know what's going to happen.
The
That
Post
person
has,
might be
the-
afraid for his
the-
safety.
periodically, the Post has a list of the contenders and the Post's estimate of the likelihood of success.
Mhm. Yeah, do you remember who they said has now pulled ahead? I forgot what
Unhappily,
they said.
no.
Yeah. And the person who has now pulled ahead probably should be concerned about his safety because, you know, there might be some people who are going after him. And
Well,
I did want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the mother and daughter that Holly brought up. I mean, it was heart-wrenching what
yes.
these people's lives has, you know, what has been going on with their lives. And
She said she doesn't like going, she does not even go out in public. And she doesn't go out with her mother because she's afraid if her mother calls her by name, she would then be harmed. I mean,
wow.
She's traumatized. We get it. We know she is she's thinking of a lynch mob, and things have been said to her. Said she's lucky this is 2020 and not 1920, and a reference to being lynched. So these things happen to anyone who speaks out, speaks up, and speaks for and against evil. You will come against the bear. You're going to come against things said against you. And I think people like us, Marilyn, and everyone on this call who are speaking, being informed, and having a conversation. We're not ever talking about you're right, you're wrong. This is about conversations. And when people have a fear of having conversations because they're speaking about, not even against, just about, people are afraid to speak about, we're in a whole different paradigm shift.
Yeah, we
I would
really
agree
are.
with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a whole paradigm shift entirely.
Well,
Entirely.
especially if we could circle back to that 15-year-old, especially if there's some people, they say things and they're not held accountable. And then there's some people,
Right.
even before they think it, they're being held accountable. And you're sitting there going, things are just
What
so
about
out
that
of
woman?
balance.
What about the woman that attended a school board meeting, and I'm thinking it was in Loudoun County, and she made a threat and was charged with a felony, and then they dropped the charges. See, this is law enforcement. You know, if they didn't remove the mask policy, she was going to come to school with her gun. She said that at a board meeting, a school board meeting. Now, law enforcement knew that was a felony. And then, you know, later on, the police chief dropped the charges.
What you mean, the prosecutor?
No, the police chief. She had a conversation with the police chief and he got on the air and said she didn't mean it.
Oh,
really? Really? Is it that easy?
Yeah, it depends on who you are. It depends on how tall you are.
That's fantastic. That is
He didn't mean
fantastic.
I'll be the jury and just save the taxpayers the money of trying that case. She didn't really mean it. No.
Yeah,
you know, and I believe her.
Yeah.
And you're the police chief. Okay.
Wow. Where's that police chief when there's lots of evidence and showing that somebody hasn't done it and they're just piling on? How many exonerated cases have there been? Where was the police chief then?
Will, you were going to say something? I think I saw your hand.
Yeah. As a First Amendment type of person, I would tolerate a certain amount of hot-blooded threats made in political meetings, as long as they stay just speech.
Well, I think the hard problem with that in this climate of people being shot or afraid of being shot in public spaces is how do we vet? I agree with you. The First Amendment, I agree with our Constitution. I'm pretty much a constitutionalist, but I think it's also what you call a breathing document where it moves, it grows. But how do you can you is it the same? And I didn't go to law school like you guys, but when you incite something, you cannot scream fire in a crowded theater and
say
and
that's
call
protected speech.
and say that's protected speech. And I think, to me, how do they, again, judicially, can you draw that line, or is it provable that that line was crossed? I don't know.
I hear.
Yeah, and I think we're all big believers in the First Amendment. That's why we're here. That's why we're spouting off, what we're spouting off. But on the other hand, when you make a threat like that, it sounds like it's a credible threat. So, yeah.
So the question I have for myself, and we're about ready to leave out here, but thank you for listening. You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. from 67. Please join us. We have different conversations about information, understanding, and action. But my question I have for myself, could I say that and get away with it? Because at this moment, right now, my personal feeling is I do not feel or even have one confidence that I could ever say those words in public.
What words? What words?
I will bring my gun to XY place if you don't do this or that. I don't think I could ever say that and ever not be held accountable or be in jail. I don't think that I could ever get away with it. I don't think I could.
I agree with you. And again, it really points to how skewed the system is and how lopsided justice is. There's no measured justice to the extent that you have a system where there are huge sentencing disparities and, a situation where it takes you months to bring charges against one race of people versus the other race of people. That speaks volumes about where we're not when it comes
Where
to
we're not. Right.
Yes, exactly, when it comes to equity or equal justice under the law.
Yes, and I would be okay with that if everybody else was allowed to be given that grace that is being sought in this conversation. But what we all know is that there's some people who are allowed to say certain things and do certain things, and some people who are not. When I look at the January 6th videos, I see what is going on, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But then sometimes you see some peaceful protests, and you hear things like, this was getting out of hand. That's why we had to shoot people. That's why we had to beat people over the head. And you're looking at it going, what was going out of hand? They were just peacefully protesting and nobody was getting hurt until, you started swinging.
Well, I saw a lot of swinging, and that was no peaceful protest on January 6th. I'm sorry. My eyeballs are not deceiving me at all. That was violent.
And we said it before. We said it on January 6th because, like Marilyn said, we remember this so vividly because we had a show that day, and we said it. If these were Black people climbing over the walls, breaking the windows, they would have been mowed down. And
they would have been killed instantly.
And I said it then. And as disgusting as it feels, I kind of believe and not wish for, but if that had happened, we would have made more gains about getting all those Black people killed in public, because then they would have seen the difference. Because it didn't happen, and people say, "Oh, of course it wouldn't have happened if Black people then." We know the damn difference. If Black people were climbing, there would have been hundreds of Black people shot, and the American people would have been justified. And then what we have been saying all along would have been on TV, viewed for the whole world to see that this is what we're talking about.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I do not agree with that, because
they let them go home. They let them go home. They let them go home. They didn't come back with charges and tell, okay, well, let me look at the video and say, is that you, Bob? Is that you, John? Oh, okay, well, we got to arrest you because you in the video, and you're in the Capitol, and the Capitol was not open to the public. So, this is something where, oh, wait a minute. Oh, so it's 1,000 more people. Okay, well, let's give it up. 1,000 more charges. Let's go find them. I mean, all of this nonsense, delayed prosecution, delayed find you, even though you were, you were at the Capitol. So, I mean, this is a different strokes for different folks, clearly.
Well, they found that black guy who shot up in the subway. They found him in 48 hours. So they can find you.
Of course.
Well, there were like my daughter who said that the reason why they did not shoot was because the reason why the police didn't shoot was because they had guns also. And when I look at Vivaldi and where the gunman was in there shooting those children, and you had policemen out with guns and body armor that would not go in there. And what she said made sense to me when she said that. They did not shoot on January 6th because the people had guns to shoot them back. They also
didn't shoot. Well, wait a minute. There was one who did try to shoot, and the woman was killed. But that was one person. But the other reason is that they saw themselves. So they're not going to shoot up themselves. They saw themselves in those protesters. So again, it's the whiteness. The persons that the majority of the people that were at the Capitol on January 6th were people that looked like them. So why are you going to shoot up somebody that looks like you?
All right, family, we're out of here. We'll see everybody next week, Wednesday. Everyone, please be safe, be kind, be compassionate, and speak up, speak out, and do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. See you next week. Bye.